republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lon, if I could have the roll, please. Ferry.
Here.
Brooks.
Here.
Frizzalone. Harris. Markham. Mustis. Ogalla. Summers. Trainier.
Present.
Van Dyne.
Here.
And Winfrey. You do have a quorum. Thank you. Approval of the minutes?
Move. Second.
Yeah, sorry. I'm reading instead of thinking. Sorry. Okay, we have an award presentation this morning, Scott, and I didn't see Ray come in. He's not back there.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, okay. You hang on just a minute, Scott.
You want me to speak into the mic?
That's probably good for our audience, but we have one more person coming in. Ray's in the hallway.
Everybody's waiting on you, buddy.
Yes, you.
What are we waiting on?
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Scott Creech with HR Green, and wanted to present this. I actually have two of them. Picture boards from the award that the Will County Sheriff's Facility won for the American Public Works Association back in February. We just had these made up to present to the county leadership on behalf of our company and myself to thank you all for having the confidence to employ HR Green to provide for not only this project but several of the Will County projects that we've been working with you all on, and it's been a tremendous partnership. So just thank you sincerely from myself and our company.
Thank you, Scott. And I've asked Ray to come in because he was chair at that time, and I'd like for him and Mr. Brooks and Scott with the award to have a picture.
Excellent. I should say the award was for a Public Works Project of the Year, $25 million and above.
Thank you.
Yeah, just hold it in these guys. I'll have the board go in this way over here.
That's fine.
Face
You're
me.
gonna get a $25 million award. We'd be happy with that.
Why don't you set that on the table, see how that, it might be too high. No good, no good.
No, if they lean the table over.
Yeah.
There we go.
Don't get in the picture.
No bunny ears, Mark.
Got it.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Who gets to keep the picture?
We do. We're going to hang it up here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, everybody.
Scott is the other, I believe it's just a second copy of the same thing. Is that right, Scott? We'll hang them.
Yeah, 2 copies.
Of the same thing. Okay.
Have a nice spot in the Will County building.
Thank you very much. That's a very well-deserved award. We have great work with our contractors and with our people here, and we look forward to more. We have our courthouse project, which we expect to be award-winning, and we have the health department. We expect to get something for that as well, because Will County thinks big.
Thought Ray was saying.
Okay, next up, we have the transportation planning grants updates. We have Ann Schneider with us this morning, along with Nick Palmer.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to hand around a memo that I did have uploaded this morning. I apologize for the lateness of it. It's just we've had a lot of meetings lately, and I'm catching up. I wanted to give you a brief update, and I'll just review this, and you can look at this at your leisure, but it's more of a reference tool, and if you exit online, there is some links you might want to go a little further if you're interested, so I'll cover that in a minute. But we just try to keep the board updated on projects. There's a lot of things going on, obviously, in all levels, and especially in the transportation realm. And we've been before you before to talk about the transportation grants, so just wanted to touch base, give you a brief update today. We have several that are going. So the one that's ongoing already is the Joliet Will County Intermodal Transportation Master Plan. This is the IDOT-funded planning research grant, and I gave you a kind of an overview of what they're trying to do, but this is around the Joliet-Elwood Supercluster. This is looking more at the transportation side of things, how we improve the flow of traffic to support the development in that area, but then also in the spirit of our freight plan, how do we balance that with the quality of life? I've got, just for your reference, a couple of the key dates. We approved the contract back in March. We officially kicked that off May 1st, and then we had a subsequent meeting with a few additional board members, so we've had representatives of the board and the Public Works Committee at both of those meetings. Ongoing work, they just completed traffic counts as part of this study. They're finalizing a public involvement plan with one of their subcontractors. CDM Smith is the lead on that. We selected through a competitive bid process. Metro Strategies is their sub on the public involvement. And then the next kind of big step is working with CED and their Freight Advisory Committee. We'll do some of that outreach through that mechanism too. So since there's already an established group that was part of our freight plan. The goal is to engage all stakeholders, governmental, private sector, environmental community, et cetera, as much as we can. Even though we have a defined area, we probably will spill over a little outside of that with some of the municipalities like a Manhattan, who's outside of the area technically, probably, but we're going to still try to include them because of potential development. Just to remind you, the funding, it was a $250,000 base. $200,000 came from IDOT, $25,000 from Will County and Joliet. We, as every project, we have to prioritize. There were a lot of other things we would have liked to have done, but we only had the $250,000 to start, so we did the absolute must-dos. One of the wanted to do, which we kind of almost considered a must-do, was the traffic count. So working with county board leadership and others, we are paying each $15,000 each, the county and the city, to do those traffic counts, because those are key to this project also. And we're going to talk more in the future about how we have some ongoing traffic count. And then the last piece on this is we are continuing to work with some private sector partners to try to obtain some additional funding to do a couple more pieces of this. I'm hopeful, but we haven't received any money yet, but we are working. Ann and I have a call with a couple of the railroads soon, and CenterPoint we've talked to, and they were positive too, so we're hoping we can get some more money out of that. I'm going to stop there on that project. There's another piece related to that, but if there's any questions thus far on that. If not, one of the pieces that we couldn't do was a regional travel demand model, and if I say anything wrong, I'm going to ask Ann on any of this to jump in and help me. But this is another big piece. This is, in short, is kind of looking at a big picture. What is the travel demand created by projects? And we can use it as a tool, if that's the right way to say it, in the future. So this was a major piece. I think the proposed amount was like $500,000, which obviously we didn't have, because this is a big thing, but it's a tool that if we create it in this area, we could use it in other areas. So we actually have applied to IDOT for additional funding, which we have a positive outlook for that. That would be we would require a match, a portion of that would be a match, but we're waiting for that, and we expect the award announcements to be made in July, so we'll be back if we do get that announcement. I'm trying to be short just for time sense, so, but it's a tool, and is that the best?
Yeah, I would just add to that is that a couple of the other collar counties have done their own travel demand model within their counties, and it helps them to prioritize their transportation projects by understanding how traffic flows and then how it might be impacted by future development.
Okay. Any questions on that? We'll be back if we get the award. So, and then the last piece, and this is why I wanted to put this a memo and explain in case you hear about these projects. There's a third pot, basically, of a grant that CMAP is doing. It's their local technical assistance grant, and they have a project they're calling the Comprehensive Transportation and Land Use Plan. I gave you a brief overview of the LTA, and that's where if you access it online or just do a search in Google, CMAP LTA grant, you can get to this page. And there's descriptions of other projects in the region. Will County had a number of applications and actually were funded for a number of applications for these LTA grants, which is CMAP funded. A lot of times it's planning, consultants. I know Moni and Piatone both are on the recommended list this year, along with our Will County plan. This is unique in that there's two pieces to this. There's a land use component and a truck routing component. This is all, and they cite this in their RFP, is all based on our freight plan, that these are next steps, one of the many next steps in our freight plan. So they are launching this initiative. It's CMAP LTA funded. The county is participating. Denise, Mike Frizzalone, and I are on their interview committee, along with other representatives. Tomorrow is a pre-bid meeting that I'm going to. I think Maura is going to go tomorrow as a representative from the board. This isn't a mandatory meeting for the vendors, but it'll give more information. So we'll have more information after tomorrow. But this is part of the Will County Governmental League was doing this truck routing study. That's the piece of the truck routing, and there's a land use piece which is looking in this. This is where it's a little confusing because it's in the same general vicinity of the intermodals, but everybody's aware of that. There is a concerted effort to coordinate this so that there's not duplication of effort and there's not confusion, hopefully, and hopefully all this work is going to give us very good work products at the end of the day. And all these efforts are geared towards how do we prioritize our projects better, how do we back them up with data, and how do we compete for federal dollars better. So I think that's it, unless there's questions. So
Joe?
Thank you. Something came to mind, Nick. What you mentioned, some private funding from possibly the railroads and Centerpoint. Do you search out dollars from existing companies and not possibly future companies in our area, just the ones that are here now?
We've tried the railroads just because they're the big players. The UP is the Joliet facility and BNSF's the Elwood facility, and they're in Centerpoints. We've also talked to Centerpoint. We haven't gone and knocked on individual companies' doors necessarily. Other communities have impact fees to do some of that, so when companies exist, well, it's when they're coming in, they pay an impact fee. The county decided not to do an impact fee years ago. There was a whole committee where we had a whole consultant-led process, and at that time the decision was made not to do an impact fee. Individual municipalities have fees and impacts that they pay, but we don't. I think if I'm answering your questions, we're not knocking on everybody's door asking them for money. We're going to the big folks who are driving a lot of this traffic and trying to get them to contribute. And the railroads aren't always willing to do that, but they've expressed some interest in, they want to be part of this process. They are a stakeholder, and we're going to try to get some assistance out of them, but I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I guess my point is, I just want to make sure that we're trying to get dollars from companies that are already here and not people that are trying to come into our area, you know.
Well, and to the, maybe you want to say some of this, the traffic demand model will help us determine some of that impact of new companies, but a lot of, and I'm not familiar, so I'm not going to try to explain this, but I know there are fees that the existing companies have already paid to come in here in some communities, and it's not consistent with every community, but they do pay some, and they pay taxes and stuff unless they've got an abatement or something like that, so I think it's a combination of existing companies we need to hit, but we also, people who are coming in are creating impact. When they locate a big company, it's going to create a lot of traffic, they should have some skin in the game, because the counties, unfortunately, we're the connection between the highway system and the municipalities. We do get benefit, we do get taxes, we do get jobs, but we're the ones usually
Also got to keep up.
developing the roads to connect into the facilities.
And just really to your point, sir, is that the study that Nick is talking about, the Transportation Master Plan, is really centered in that area, and the center points, the UP and the BNSF, they're the ones that would stand to benefit from some of the outcomes from the study, in addition to the movement of traffic through the region. So it would, huge benefit, obviously, to the residents, but also, as beneficiaries, we were hoping we could get them to recognize that and contribute.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, I'd like to comment perhaps on policy and the strategies of the county when it comes to transportation planning and land planning. And these grants, of course, come up, and we look at, our schedule where perhaps based on our transportation study, areas to be addressed. In our transportation study, we show two types of hubs, those that exist and those that are likely to exist or likely to be developed, even though they're not there. There's a strong possibility they will at some point come into play. So when I look at it, so there's two different sets of challenges. One is dealing with existing. Now that we have much more data, we're more mature in this type of development, and we know a little bit more what to expect. So now we look at one area, and how do we alleviate negative impacts, and how do we lessen impacts as they maybe perhaps grow. And then we have a blank canvas opportunity, right, of planning. And I'm going to refer more to the eastern part of Will County. It's not, those hubs, which could be very large, and of course we have Amazon out there, one of their biggest facilities in the country. And so, and most of that property lies in unincorporated Will County. So, I'm just going to express my view on where I think we should put our resources. Certainly, we need to address where the impacts are occurring and how do we help alleviate that. But let's not get behind in planning for the future and maybe putting those resources, like in eastern Will County. It's not the only place, by the way, where we have that kind of blank canvas and where we're responsible for land use. It's not to say that municipalities might not annex that in, but currently it sits in unincorporated Will County. So I'd like to see a little bit more of an emphasis looking forward than necessarily alleviating problems that probably we can't alleviate anyway. Certainly for existing, we can talk about the growth. Here again, from a county perspective, they're pretty much municipalities. We have limited ability to impact that. So I'm just talking about from a strategical, where do we go? Where do we start putting our resources?
Yep.
Where are we going to get the best bang for our buck? And our best bang for the buck, in my opinion, is looking forward and not looking where we've made mistakes or perhaps didn't do the appropriate planning, or where we can't impact it anyway as a county, because it lies within municipal boundaries, and, transportation-wise, it may impact county roads. We have to address that, but certainly not land planning. So I just wanted to throw out my kind of big picture view from Jim.
Thank you,
Okay,
Lori.
thanks.
Thanks, Jim, because I appreciate that. And Nick knows I've been asking about that for a long time. We need to look at it regionally in the outlying areas.
Right. And I can respond to Mr. Bustos. I want to let you speak first, but I can go ahead and I'll finish.
Okay, so I feel, Jim, thank you for saying that, because I've always thought that we need to start looking in the outlying areas, because ultimately it's a regional issue, and we are now feeling the impacts. So I would like to see that happen, that we are looking at other areas, looking to the future on how can we avoid this, and this in those areas, which it ultimately will be there, so.
So, a couple of issues, I guess, briefly. One, we have heard the board members and the county executive agrees, and that's why we have, as Judy and Lori both know, we've had several meetings, and we have another one scheduled with the Eastern Will County municipalities. We've met with the township supervisors and highway commissioners out there on a variety of issues, safety issues and also development issues, and we're going to continue to press forward on that. But the one item I noted earlier, the travel demand model, is one of those tools that is forward-thinking, that will assist with that. And there has been discussion among elected officials and other folks of lessons learned around the existing intermodals can hopefully help us from repeating those mistakes. And nobody is throwing rocks at anybody saying the mistakes. Will County, because of its location, has seen massive development. Unlike anywhere else probably in the country, at least on the inland side, the ports developed over many years, and they still have challenges too. But we're unique when we go to Washington, when we talk about because we're south of the Great Lakes and because we're close to rail lines, waterways, and highways, so we are kind of on the cutting edge in some of this stuff, and we're going to have to challenge. But that is the focus of all this, is how can we deal with existing facilities, but also how we can use those lessons and those tools we develop there in the other areas. Because if you were listening to the radio the other day, the old at Lorenzo Road, it's Elion now is the company, I think it was Ridgeport before, they have plans for $20 to $25 million of development there. I mean, that's the next wave of development, along with all the other potential projects out there. So we're going to have to keep going, and that is it. My end point is, that is the focus of all this. We've heard the board members, we've heard other folks, we're working on it, and that's the goal of all these efforts. So,
Judy?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One goes back to number one on your grant, and you mentioned the fact that we'll be finalizing public involvement plan. What type of things are you going to do for the public involvement? Like what type of things? Meetings, letters, what?
Well, right now, because of the limited budget for this, the public involvement, there'll be one public meeting, and there'll be a website available. As we work with the businesses to identify additional funding, the idea would be to create the opportunity for another public meeting and then to do a public survey, much like what was done with the freight plan. So it's pretty contained, and it will focus on the study area. So in and around the intermodal facilities will be where the focus of the public involvement will be.
So will you do it at JJC again, maybe, or?
That hasn't been decided yet. They just provided to us last week, the plan at the end of last week,
Okay.
and we're going through that with them right now.
Yeah, it's too soon to know that.
Yeah.
It's too soon. Okay, great. And then we talk about all the different development that could potentially happen, the development currently existing, the development that we know will be coming, and then if there's any potential. And in keeping in mind the recent Committee of the Whole and the presentation at Land Use regarding the Greenest Region Compact, I hope that we as a board look at the county, because we are so unique. We have solar, we have nuclear. I mean, that's something that's unique. We have the Midday-Wind, we have big cities like Bolingbrook, Plainfield, Naperville, small communities like Frankfort, and smaller communities where like Lori and I live, and Joe out in Wilmington. And people move here to get out of the congestion. And I think we need to do a great job at planning as to what do we want the future of Will County to be. Because if we allow everybody in the economic development world, they will pave everything over. So we really need to look at how much do we want to have paved, and what is worth looking at, conservation practices, easements, things like that, so that we maintain. And we are lucky to have such a vibrant ag community, which provides to the revenue that's generated out of this county. And not only that, that open space, the green space, the treed space, all in those things help benefit the region as a whole. And we have to look at the economic viability that they provide. And I know that Jim mentioned the other day in land use, let's do an alternative plan to what happens if the airport isn't built, because we never know. I mean, it's hot, it's cold, it's hot, it's cold. Lori and I change our socks less often than this project comes and goes. And so it's just something that we need to do. We need to be proactive, because there are people from the outside looking to come in because they're packed up. And I know our residents want to have good roads. I support that, because we have to have good, safe roads. We have so many intersections that are dangerous, and they want to have jobs that are close to them, but they enjoy living where they live. So I hope that can be part of some of the plans. I know there's a bunch of different things you're working on, Ann, and the community-friendly part. I really hope we do look at that and make a strong presence for that. And I know some residents will be impacted, but as projects that happen in my district, I've always been there to say, okay, well, this is what's going to happen, but, and we can't stop everything, right? But what can we do to make it better by insisting something else occurs?
Yeah, and I agree, and I strongly encourage you to take a look at the RFP for the CMAP RFP for the land use and transportation plan. When we just had discussions with them about the scope, all of those things are contained within that as important elements to consider as they put that together. And the other thing is that we explained that we want it to be scalable beyond the study area at some point, so we wanted to make sure that we positioned it to be applicable to other parts of the county.
That's good.
Jim?
You know, public input has always been, in transparency, I think has always been a signature of Will County. So when you're saying that the budget only allows for one meeting, I'd be interested, well, what's a meeting cost to hold? And, you know, and perhaps we can mitigate some of that cost by using some county staff at the meetings. I would be interested, you know, if you said, hey, look, we can do 2 more meetings for X dollars, you know, we may think that it's worth it, just, okay, we're going to hold a couple extra meetings so we can get around regionally. So,
Jim, maybe we can, once we have these meetings that are in the next week or two with the private sector folks, see where the money's at, and then we can, because we haven't finalized the public outreach plan. It just, then if we need, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and we asked that question too about county staff, but there are some costs related, but if we need to come back, we can say, here's what we've obtained, here's what maybe we need, or what have you.
well, like I say, well, I guess what I'm saying is maybe
We're stretching this
we as a county could fund a second meeting, or,
Right.
you know, I think we should have a minimum of 2.
Right.
You know, if nothing else, you know,
That was discussed too.
the dates, a date may not work for somebody,
Right.
you know, they're, whatever. So I think, you know, if you come back and say, we can do a second public input meeting
Right.
for X amount of dollars, and we can use some staff to mitigate some costs, or whatever, then
We will gladly
I'd
come.
like you to come back.
We will gladly come back, but if we can obtain funding from some other sources, we are trying to do that first before because the county doesn't have a huge amount in, but the county does have skin in the game already in this, so we're trying to get some skin in the game. But I appreciate your suggestion.
It might be worth a few extra.
Right, right.
Yes.
And that
If
was
we can get
discussed.
some of our other people to pay for that extra meeting is what we're trying right now.
But if we don't-
yes, we would agree. We need the extra. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anything, Nick, Ann? Okay.
Can can we move up, Ann's contract is on the agenda today
Oh,
too while
yes.
she's here?
Thank you. Yes.
That's number 7 on the agenda.
Okay, yes, and we do have the renewed contract for Ann Schneider and Associates on the agenda, it's number 7, so we'd like to look at that now. Are there questions on that?
Can I give a brief introduction, just because, so,
I didn't get to ask my questions, I had to step out of the room for a minute. Just wanted to know about you mentioned the CMAP to Judy, CMAP. What portion of the CMAP where we'd see this planning information? Because that's a huge website with a lot of stuff.
Right. I would go to the information about CMAP, and then when you get on that, there's several categories there, but it's like the third one down, it says there are RFPs.
RFPs, that was it. Thank you.
So then click on the RFPs, and it should be on top.
we can send the link to the
I
RFP,
think that's
and
a good
also the memo has a link in it to the LTA section, but I will work with Maura, and we'll get the RFP link set out so you can access that.
Thank you.
Because that has a lot of summary information, too.
Thank you very much.
So, Denise, if I could just give a quick overview. A lot of you know Ann very well, but some of you are new, and I think it's worth acknowledging her experience and why we brought her on in the first place. Ann is a former secretary of IDOT, so she was at the top of the pyramid there. She has been a valued member of our team. Will County, we don't have loads and loads of staff. We're very efficient and frugal with our money, but bringing her in as a consultant, when we did the freight study, she served as the project manager on that and really helped keep the consultants on task. That involved a little more commitment of county funds. Once that project was completed, we moved her to a retainer contract on a monthly basis, and she has helped with a variety of tasks. Currently, you'll see in the contract, she's helping with this Transportation Master Plan project. She's also helping with the LTA stuff, and basically anything related transportation grant funded as it relates to policy. We've called her in on a variety of tasks just because of her wealth of experience, and sometimes it's also just her wealth of contacts. When we go into a meeting with IDOT, she knows most of the players in the room, and she's just been very, very valuable. And just a couple concrete examples I will cite. I mean, whenever you're successful, there's a lot of people who can take credit for the success. But I will say the competitive freight grant programs that saw over $50 million come to Will County, and worked with the Village of Plainfield on their application, just offering some advice and on their application. We worked with IDOT and the Village of New Lenox and others on the Route 30, which maybe those would have happened, but I think her help, and if you talk to them, they would say it was very valuable. And then we've just generally, with these IDOT grants, she's been a liaison of getting information when we have questions, and both, that's at the state level and at the federal level, because Ann also served previously as the chair of the National Freight Task Force, so she's got contacts up and down the chain, and I just say that because I think she deserves credit for that, and that's why we're bringing her back for another year. The contract begins July 1, ends June 30th actually, I think I may have a typo in mine, but it's June 30th of 2020. If it's not on yours, it's on maybe. But it's $5,000 a month. There's a targeted number of hours, but I can tell you she puts in a lot more hours than she bills us for. And we trade emails at all hours of the day or week, on weekends, so. I'm not going to embarrass her anymore, but she's done a great job. I think most of you know that, but I just wanted to give the history for those who didn't know it, so.
And I'll just say that along with that, the Memorial Day weekend, when we were on the phone, texting back and forth, trying to make sure we were included in the Capitol bill and getting the things we want, which we did, and was also on those texts, on those phone calls, and those emails with us. So clicking in, what about this, what about that? So invaluable. So are there questions?
They did get us money for that freight study.
Yes.
I want to point out, we were able to expand and offset county costs.
Right, because of the work that she did, exactly. Yeah. So if there are no questions, motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And thank you, Ann.
Thank you, guys.
All right, see you later.
Okay. All right. So then we'll move into our new business, the IGA between the Village of Orland and the Will County Sheriff's Office for investigation of officer-involved deaths and shootings.
Motion to approve. Second.
Can I ask a question?
Jim?
The only question I would have is, Is this an agreement between the sheriff's office and Orland, or is it an agreement between Will County and the village of Orland? Or can the agreement just be between can the sheriff execute the agreement on his own without county board?
No, because the statute requires county board to authorize the sheriff to provide services to their government entities, so it's always a three-party.
So it's a contract between the county and Orland Park?
And sheriff.
And the sheriff.
And sheriff.
Yes, all three are signatories.
It's an IGA, right?
It is.
Right.
Yeah,
But it's
okay,
Orland Park and the sheriff's office
fine.
and the county.
I have some questions.
And it's
I'll
a
let
very
go.
small.
I'll let it go.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I had a motion and a second. Are there any opposed? All those in favor, sorry. Was there any more discussion? Yeah. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Motion carries. Okay, then we have an IGA with the Village of Minooka, the Village of Shanahan Park District, and the Forest Preserve District of Will County to jointly fund Phase 1 engineering for construction of a multi-use path in Minooka in County Board 6. You might remember that this is the other end of McEvely Road. We had done some portion of that before. We will help them get it done. We will not be maintaining it. It'll fall on those villages. That's their side of the IGA. So,
Second.
any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, then we have the emergency purchase order, the chillers on the ADF.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I just have one question. Where's that money coming from?
The chillers?
Yeah,
Well, one, we already spent it.
that's come out of county board contingency?
Because we denied it.
Yeah. We had said it wasn't an emergency, then it failed. So then we had to do it.
Remember the whole?
I was just about to ask.
Yeah.
I remember this big brouhaha about this.
You were just wait.
It was on the Public Works Committee, so it had to be what, November, October?
It was at the full county board, and Joel Van Essen talked about it. At that time, we had thought it was an emergency situation. The board decided otherwise.
When was it?
February or March, I think.
It was this year?
Oh, yeah, recent,
Yeah,
very
this year.
recent.
It was last fall.
This is year, then when we tried to fire it up, it failed.
I just want to clarify, though. We didn't deny this. We said it wasn't an emergency.
Right.
It didn't prevent the maintenance department going out and doing regular bids on the chiller. Now, if they didn't, it's not our fault, the county board fault. All we said is we didn't think this classified as a true emergency. Just go out and do the regular procurement of the county. So,
Do we know if they even started that?
well, here again, you know, they could have asked for Mary said we couldn't.
Right.
You said we couldn't appropriate any money.
You cannot appropriate in excess of your budget unless it is an emergency.
So it wasn't in the budget.
So now we,
Then
okay.
it
but-
became emergent, and then we settled it. Question, another
So
question.
they came to us, they came to us in March, and we said no, because it wasn't an emergency and it wasn't in the budget. So in April, did they begin the process?
I don't ask
Or,
them.
and when was this emergency, when did we pay for it? Because you said, and I should have pulled that up.
Joel?
On completion now.
Yes, we did start the process.
Okay, that was my only question, really.
But then it failed.
So now it's broke, so now it's in the budget.
Now now we're fixing it.
So this
This is more or less after the fact.
This happened in May 21st. I'm looking at a memo. So it broke in early May?
Right.
Okay, so you had started it, a month had gone by, you hadn't finished, and then it really broke. Okay, thank you. And it was cool in May, so you were lucky.
I do have one other question.
On the same one?
Yes. So let me ask, how long does the process take to replace the chiller? I mean, is it a 1-month process, 2 months, 3 months?
Thanks, Joel. Joel Van Essen and Brian Concert with us.
It's not a replacement, it's an overhaul. A replacement, we would have to actually open up the wall, take out the equipment, so it's an overhaul.
So overhaul the current,
Yes.
Yeah. Chiller.
Yes.
So it's a repair.
Yes.
It's not a replacement, it's a repair.
Refurbishment,
Yeah.
like new bearings, new insides.
It's still a repair.
Yes.
It's a repair versus a replacement.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, and then I need to
And
ask,
then we'll have to do it,
because I was thinking if it's a replacement, we might be able to get to the next year's budget,
no.
as far as payment goes.
Right, no, we would, we would
But
execute it as soon
this
as
will
you
not,
approve it.
yeah.
long will this extend the life?
8 or 9 years.
8 or 9 years, and then we'll have to do it. And we,
So he's going to forecast it, his.
we'll put it on our master plan for special projects. And then also, just to let you know, the other, there's 3 of them. The 1 and 2, you guys already paid for 2 years ago. Or, yeah, it's about 2 years ago.
So 1 and 2 are good.
Yes.
So-
3 went down.
So it's-
All be good for 8 or 9 years then, same timing?
Well, 6 years.
6 years for the other ones, because they're 2 years. prior.
Is this, the chiller, is it a proprietary type of situation where, you know, there's single source for repairs and the equipment to repair it?
Different companies can do it, but AMS is very qualified as a company that we would reach out to.
You're asking, is it required to be the OEM though?
Yeah.
And that would be a no.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Joel.
Yep.
Okay. Did we get the?
You just need a vote. You got a motion and a second, I think, right?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Voiding the bid for the tire collection.
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Lease renewal with AIOC for office space in the Will County Arbitration Center at the Court Annex. Second. There's a question, Jackie?
That's the group I think I heard about this morning that deals with the wiring and the software and everything for the court system. And we actually give them space, too? Is this space like office space or space
Thank
for
you,
like their
Roger.
equipment?
Hi.
Roger Holland.
The AOIC does a lot more than wiring and
That's the only part I heard.
That's
so-
that's one segment of what they do. They're the whole administrative arm for the Supreme Court. And this lease that you have in front of you has been we've had a lease with them. We've asked to continue that lease for a period of 1 year. At that point, the county board can then negotiate with the AOIC and determine, because we'll have a different space in the new courthouse, if they want to change the terms of that lease, that's up to the county board. But this is money coming into the county. We're not paying them,
Right.
they're paying us.
Right.
So this
And-
is just continuing the current term of the lease for 1 year, approximately 1 year, long enough for us to get moved into the new building.
Mm-hmm.
And then the county board during that time can initiate negotiations with the administrative office and come to whatever terms they'd like to for the new space.
So there's planned space for them in the new courthouse?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, Roger. Okay, we did 7 already, so we'll move to number, excuse me, to number 8, authorizing...
6.
Oh, I crossed it off too soon, sorry. Authorizing lease agreement with Bays in the Rialto Building for the Regional Soup of Education. Question? I have a
Second.
Second.
Question.
Okay, question, Jackie.
How many square feet do they have now in their current location?
Slightly more than they have, or that we're downsizing a little bit.
And what all do they do? I mean, I know they go out and they check with the schools and they work with the different districts, and I know there's another board that they kind of supervise that deals with disputes about where kids should go to school. I mean, I've learned quite a bit about some of the things they do, but this seems like a lot of square feet. I mean, I didn't think there were that many people that work there, so I'm just kind of curious.
Well, firsthand, I want to say that at the last executive committee meeting, I had Dr. Sean Walsh here, who is the regional superintendent, to answer questions.
And I'm sorry, I
such
went
as
to
these.
Greece.
And we didn't talk, no, that's okay. We didn't talk about it, but he couldn't make today's. So when it comes to the operational aspect of regional superintendent,
that's hard.
that's kind of
Okay.
beyond my...
I'll contact.
Yeah, this would be a space issue.
I do know
for
that
us,
he has
so,
nine or
concerned
10
about space.
people work there.
Ah, Okay, more than I
And
thought.
I do know that
Okay.
they're in charge of the GED program also, that they,
Yeah, that's what I wondered, if they did the testing there, because I remember seeing the testing sign downstairs that we used to do the testing. I don't know if they do that
They do
here.
testing, they also administer the McKinney-Vento grant, and they do the teacher fingerprinting
I
for
forgot,
teachers.
Tyler, you know a lot about what these
I
guys do.
worked for that grant,
Yes.
so I used to be in that office. So
Yeah.
they have 5 or 6 grant positions that are no cost to the county, but, so they do have more people in there than you would think. And they do all the fingerprinting for school districts. A lot of them are
Yeah.
doing that in-house now, but like a substitute, if you want to be a substitute teacher, you have to get fingerprinted and you can go there, so they do that. And for concealed carry, they also, that's one of the places you can get fingerprinted. So-
Wow, okay.
Okay.
And is there like parking associated with this too? Because these 10 permanent employees obviously need a place to park. And there's not a parking lot that I'm aware of that's attached to the Rialto, or maybe there is, I don't know.
One right across the
it's not,
street.
it's not attached, go ahead.
City of Joliet has a parking lot right across the street.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, the lessor buys parking spaces from the city in either the Scott Street Garage or the Ottawa Street Garage, and this property is conveniently located between
Right
the two.
between,
So,
yeah.
they're allocated, those spaces would be allocated to the employees. And that's included in the
Okay.
$100,000.
Cost difference between where they're at currently and what we're going to be paying now.
The cost difference between where they're at now, it's actually significantly less,
Yeah,
but
how much was it before?
I want to say it's like somewhere around $9,000.
Okay, okay.
Or a little bit more with an increase, but the owner is not interested in renewing the lease, so they're in the last year of their extension, lease extension option.
But we are saving money, that's what I wanted to know.
Yes, we are, and we
Okay.
did shop around.
Okay.
Another question over here first, Jim.
Just kind of for full disclosure, though, that there will be some costs related to moving for phones, maybe computers, so there would be some additional, I understand that the landlord will do most of the build-out, but we will have some related costs to this, correct?
Yes.
I mean, just so people know.
Some one-time costs, yes.
Yeah, IT and phones.
You know, so the other
Maybe Jim will ask.
comment I would make is that this is what, 3 years with
Base term, no, I'm sorry, they
5
want...
years?
Yes.
It's 5 years, so with some options. You know, hopefully in 5 years, as we move forward, you know, we're going to find a permanent place.
was our question.
So the timing is, 5 years might be good for the county as far as us finding some permanent home.
Space for them.
Yeah, anyway.
Okay.
That was our other question. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, number 8, authorizing a lease with at and T Communications Equipment at the county-owned radio tower on Laraway Road. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right. Authorizing contract renewal with JJC for the workforce development.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor? Okay. And the next few are all tied to that. Authorizing contract renewal with JJC for the workforce development for the WIOA youth occupational training. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Authorizing contract renewal and employment and employer services for the fiscal year 19 on-the-job training program.
So moved.
Any opposed? Okay. Renewal of the Will County One-Stop Operator Agreement with Workforce.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay. And then we have approval, funding assistance for the State Water Survey with the Regional Groundwater Study.
Move.
Second.
Questions?
I know, I've read in the paper, they're talking about like using water, if I'm on the right topic, from the Kankakee River. Is this a different process, or does this not have to do with drinking water?
This is the DuPage River
Just the
study.
stormwater?
This actually is, let me just speak briefly, and then the Speaker Winfrey and some members of the committee will remember that Walt Kelly from the Illinois State Water Survey came, I think, twice to the county board meeting and talked about the drawdown of the groundwater, and that affects the wells. I know, Mark and Jim, you probably saw it 3 times because you were at Stormwater Committee. So there's a concern about the drawdown of the wells. Those deep wells especially serve communities in the county. Most of the residents are actually on shallower wells. However, this study is also going to include that. So a group got together, kind of, I guess you'd call it an ad hoc group, but it's the Southwest Water Planning Group. It's Joliet and some of the other communities. The county also is a member of that group. The State Water Survey came with their proposal to make a model of Will County's groundwater system so that answers to some of these questions can be worked out. If somebody starts taking water from the Kankakee River, then that will be able to be modeled and see how much relief that provides for the groundwater drawdown.
That's what I was really curious, if that's what this was going to do, because, if we can, say, fund the big dog, Joliet, out of the Kankakee River, then maybe all the other farmers and the other people on wells will be able to get along a lot longer.
The intuitive sense is that yes, but doing the model will answer that in a more analytical way.
Very cool.
So.
Very cool. And then the other option I heard talked about was getting like Lake Michigan water from like Indiana or something, building a pipeline. Is that also going to be talked?
That's not included in this. Joliet is frankly, Joliet's the biggest user.
Right.
And so they are actually working separately, although they will participate in this study. They are doing their own study to determine how they want to supply their water.
Jim?
So this is basically going to address groundwater and the state of our groundwater through the region.
It will address the state of the groundwater, and it will provide a mechanism by which we can model if Joliet stops pumping and takes water out of the Kankakee River, how much does that help?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really kind of a difficult subject because you really can't speak to the regeneration of these aquifers, where it comes from, how it takes. All you can really say is they'll stop drawing it down.
That's a fair statement, yes.
Yeah, okay, so, and it doesn't necessarily, this says, well, if you get an alternate water source, the result is you won't be taking 20 million gallons of water out.
They will model the pumping, and yes, so in other words, if you stop pumping this many gallons a day, how will that help alleviate the drawdown? And so that's really what this will be. It'll be a model where decisions can be made and planning.
Okay, Judy?
Do we know where the recharge areas for the aquifers are?
The recharge areas are not in Will County. So yes, they're actually principally the sandstone aquifer, I believe, and this is probably a better question for Walt Kelly, but I believe that's Rockford and to some extent up in Wisconsin. So all the rain we've had here doesn't necessarily, I know Lake Michigan's pretty full, but so yes, we do, and they're not in Will County.
So, kind of as a follow-up.
It doesn't care.
Not that we're in the business of building pipelines for stormwater, but I was reading Deborah Shore from the Water Reclamation District in Chicago, Cook County, whatever all they cover, and the volume of water that obviously we all got in May, and that they discharged it basically into these rivers. And I'm thinking to myself, we should have all had a pipeline to Rockford.
Obviously, there's been a lot of rain recently.
But even normally.
But that rain here doesn't impact the aquifer that's 1,200 feet down.
Yeah.
I mean, in a sense,
takes
it does,
forever.
but it takes forever. In terms of our thinking, it takes forever. I mean, it takes a couple of years, actually, to get here from Rockford, so. So, actually, what the Stormwater Committee talked about this at their meeting 2 weeks ago, and they actually resolved that they talked about it for quite a while. They're concerned about the economic impact of not being able to provide water for the wells. Some of the industries have deep wells, and some of the industries are actually going to participate in this group. Stormwater Committee resolved that the county should enter into this agreement. The county portion is actually $60,000 total over 3 years. The Stormwater Committee resolved that they would take the $20,000 that's needed for this year out of their stormwater drainage program and provide this because they thought it was that important. And so...
Okay, last question?
Yeah. You know, the other question I would have is this, for example, I forget the number, but, you know, there was like 4 or 6 deep wells on the Arsenal property. Of course, they were looked at. Would this study show, and it comes to determination, it's not all usable water. It's too full of sulfur or whatever. I mean, so will this study just say, well, here are the levels, not whether it's necessarily good water for drinking or industry, because not all water is usable water.
So the State Water Survey is basically going to collect data on water quality. And then there are actually 2 wells in Fairmont, which are in the Dolomite Aquifer, which is the shallow aquifer, and I'm probably getting into more detail than you want to hear, but these questions are, so those Dolomite, City of Joliet's going to take over the Fairmont system, and the State Water Survey is then going to use those 2 wells as monitoring wells, because there's very little data on the shallow aquifer, the Dolomite Aquifer. So there will also be water quality data on those more shallow wells. So yes, there is water quality will be taken into account.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
How long is the study, and will we get a report when it's all done?
3 years and yes. And there will be monthly meetings where the State Water Survey, they'll update what they're doing, and I participate in those, at least at the moment.
Yeah, will they get the stormwater?
No, they won't. This is a separate group. So no, there's no intention to do that at this point. However, I can change that if it's your desire. Yeah, certainly if the Stormwater Committee, I can take care of that if that's the board's desire.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
I'm Scott Killinger, and I'm a consulting engineer, but I'm the county's chief subdivision engineer, so.
Thank you. Okay.
And I guess I did budget in the future years for the money. This year, we'll take it out of the project program.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay. All those, Dean?
Can I just mention something? On July 21st, if you guys like baseball, come to the Slammers, and we're going to have Water Conservation Day. So it'll be all about this.
And certainly, water conservation is an element of this that is beneficial. I mean, it all helps. Getting rain helps, getting less drips helps.
Thank you. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then, Dean, will you make sure that there is a notice sent out?
Oh yeah, you'll know all about it the next few weeks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. 14, declaring a vacancy, that would be for the seat of Don Moran. We're going to accept his resignation and then move the vacancy. So we have a motion, a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We have a number of proclamations. Mr. Ferry, Mr. Frizzlone, we have.
Yeah, so those, yeah, I saw.
And then we have some check presentations. Okay, and then we have the appointments by the county executive. So we'll move to the committee reports.
Need a motion on the appointments.
Don's, okay. We did have a second. Oh, the appointments, I'm sorry. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. All right, now we'll move to the committees. We didn't have anything yet with you for for an opinion, did we, Mary? No, okay. We are going to be having an executive session after, though, so don't everybody run out. Okay, committee reports, land use.
I have nothing.
Okay. Okay. Judy?
So with Land Use Committee, I sat in the committee on last week. And in that, we're talking about endorsing the Metropolitan Mayor's Greenest Region Compact. And I spent a lot of time reading through the entire document, which I know we had the committee of the whole. I didn't have time to look through it all there. And I found that the document is very worthwhile and does address some of the things. My thought was, as far as endorsing the Metropolitan Mayors, which was designed to be a metropolitan type thing, many of the things in it don't apply to us, or many of the things that we have are not in it. And I know that we can change it and everything like that, but I'm just thinking that coming up with a plan that would be like a Greenest Region Compact for counties, being a leader, we have so many different things that others don't have, such as our nuclear, and we'll have solar coming in, and different types of things. And once we get out, my thought in that is once we get beyond the collar counties, the rest of the counties may not have these type of plans in place because they're so much smaller than we are, and they're not being impacted by many of the things that we are locally. I was just thinking that maybe we should consider being a leader and coming up with a Greenest Region Compact from a county perspective, so that we could be the leader on that, and other counties who are smaller than us, like Kankakee, Iroquois, Grundy, all those ones that we move out towards, could look towards us, because we do so many things that other counties, I know, they are not doing today. That was one of my thoughts of doing something like that. And then in that whole thing, I know we talked about, we have a sustainability plan. I don't recall what it is. If we could see what it is, I know that Sam mentioned taking this Greenest Region, then updating our sustainability plan with that. So I wonder if we could get a copy of what that is.
Of what the...
Our current one is.
Oh, okay. Yes, we can arrange Dean...
It's actually on our website.
Oh, okay.
You go on Will County Green, the energy efficiency
Okay.
conservation plan that we have in 2012.
We can send it out too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and if you want, I'll send you the link and everybody can see it.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of it's getting outdated now, that's why we're trying to work on, we've done a lot more of
Yeah.
Right, and I remember, but I just needed a refresher on that. So
Okay.
I'll look at the website, yeah.
Okay, Mike and then Jackie.
I agree with Judy that rather than us signing on to something that was designed by mayors for municipalities, I think we're better served, we can take things out of there, but write our own based on a county, and there's no mention of farm and conservation for farm stuff. We should have our own that other counties could use as an example, rather than using one from mayors that are designing toward municipalities. We've talked to Sam about this. She understands, and like she said, well, we could add stuff to this one, but there's stuff in here that we should be taking out because it doesn't apply to us. We'd be better served, I think, having our own. It may take us another month or so, but I like to see us have our own green thing that applies to counties rather than to municipalities.
Jackie?
My understanding, and maybe I was putting things in there she didn't say, but my understanding was that by adopting this is just a tool that she's going to be using bits and pieces of to update our sustainability plan. So, I mean, we're just adopting something, basically promoting it so that those smaller counties, because I'm sure they get access to this. I'm going to talk to a township about it next week. I'm going to speak to a supervisor of a township and talk about, what they might be able to pull out of here. And maybe there'd be only one or two little things that they could do at the township level. But I would encourage them to adopt it and do their couple of things and promote the couple things they do. I didn't get the impression that this was going to be our document and that we were just promoting the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. I thought we were using this as a tool to continue on with our own sustainability and efforts and our green efforts.
Yeah, all right, that's...
I'll let him go, maybe he'll...
Okay, Mike, did you have another one?
No,
Turn off. Okay, Dean?
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. It's just a tool, it's a framework. Many of these things the Forest Preserve is doing, many of the things the county is doing, but some things are totally irrelevant to us. So, but there's boxes for that, and you can check. And so say there's certain sections where you don't like them too much, then we'll just check those boxes and not do them. We just won't do them because they're not relevant to us, or the board has already weighed in and said, this is not something we want to endorse. So we can do it that way. Whatever, this is just, what we're trying to do is kind of use this document as a guide, that's all. It doesn't have to be followed 100%, and I bet you almost any municipality wouldn't be following that 100%. Kane County, I believe, adopted it last month. So there is a county, and then Cook, I think, a while back, but, there may be some other counties down the pipeline, so, as well. So.
Okay. Tyler?
And just really quick to add on this, endorsing this kind of gives us access to the template and we can update it. So I think this is a first step into us making our own document. I don't think that it's going to do any harm if we adopt this. And then, because the more people that we participate with, the better off we're all going to be. So I think that this is just a first step, and then we can produce our own more county-oriented one too. So that's all I have to say.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm always a little bit apprehensive when we get into these regional kind of consortiums, and whether it's in the best interest of Will County or isn't it, or what is really the purpose. And I have those same apprehensions with this agreement, that we're really joining this consortium. But what I did take away from Sam's presentation that maybe brought me over a little bit is that the prospect of us having more access to grant money, this will enable us perhaps to, because of the consortium, because we would get support, hopefully, from the consortium for certain grants that they may not do, that could include agriculture.
Yeah.
This would be the benefit as being part of the consortium.
Correct.
So, having said that, I think for me, that's the benefit. Otherwise, I would say, I don't know why we're in this. So if it helps with that, I'm on board. And I also, as I mentioned to you the other day, Dean, townships, you should be going to the townships. There's a lot of things I think townships can do to adopt policy or encourage these types of principles. So am I correct in the respect that this will help us potentially bring some money in for our programs?
Yes.
That we would not have access to otherwise?
Most likely, yes, exactly, yeah.
And it's an endorsement, not adoption.
Yeah. Okay, other questions on the board? On the committee, I mean? No? Oh, Judy?
So Dean, then to be able to use a template that they've provided, because otherwise we'd be like copying it, which would not be right, we have to endorse it to have access to the template and make changes to it?
My understanding is, because I don't talk to Edith directly, that was more Sam, I was trying to get her here, but she's finalizing, we have a meeting right after this on the gas situation at the landfill, so I just wanted to get that finalized. But anyway, she's busy doing that, that's why she's not here at this moment. But yes, that's my understanding.
Okay, because one of my issues with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus is simply the fact that they in their own communities have their own things to do, which I understand, and when you read through it, you see it says trees and stuff like that, and parkways and stuff that we don't have.
Sure.
And that makes so much sense, but of course I have the negativity that this group of mayors, many of them, go and push for an airport in Peatone, and it's kind of like, okay, so you want your area to be green and your area to be trees and open space, and then you want to go to the governor and ask for something to be built in our area that is completely contradictory to anything within a green environment. So that's where my contention is. I mean, I support conservation, do it all the time on my own farm. We're award-winning farmers on that. Many of the farms in the proposed airport footprint are conservation award-winning farms. And there are thousands of trees out there on that property. So that's my problem with this, is it seems like the mayors, and I know mayors have an attitude toward county elected officials that we're not as important as they are.
There's a motion.
So, I mean, I have a negativity towards the metropolitan mayors. That is my whole thing with this. I agree with the plan. I've been involved with conservation for a very long time, and it's just the fact that they have this inward thinking that we are this little fiefdom that I have here, and it's wonderful and glorious, but her little fiefdom, I don't care, because I'm putting all my crap over there. That is my beef with it, and why I don't care for it. And I support many of the things in it, but that's how I feel.
Okay. Is there anybody else on the committee? No? Okay. Rachel?
Yes, hi. So
Question?
I initially brought this forward not because anyone from the Mayor's Caucus approached me. It has nothing to do with that. No one's trying to invade and take over our stuff. I saw the document at a Wickerson meeting, and I went through it personally, and I checked off the goals, and I said, oh my God, there's so many of these things we're already doing, there's so many things we could be doing, the next step of stuff we're doing, and I thought, what a great way to have a long-term plan. So I would ask you to put any personal biases aside. This isn't someone trying to swoop in. Also, after the committee of the whole, Mike, I heard your concerns about saying that, why use this when we can just do our own thing. This is for us to make our own thing, which is why I sent you the resolution if you wanted to change to clarify that. Sam did go back and change the clarification on the resolution, which was then sent to the Land Use Committee, which we approved on Tuesday. So we're trying very hard to make this a bipartisan plan going forward. Right, so hopefully we see that this is something that once we've endorsed the document, Sam says she would go through an index, all the things that we're already doing, where the grant money opportunities are, prioritize those, and bring it back to the county for us then to approve that plan. So if you go through the document and you feel, oh my God, there's something in there that just turns my stomach, I don't want to see it in our plan, please send that feedback to Dean and Sam and anyone in the land use department so that they can make a plan that works for everyone. But this is the reality of the how are we going to make some of these things sustainable as we grow and want to protect things like our farmland. So we have to have a balance, and this allows us to have an ongoing plan. So I would hope that everyone would get behind this document. It is for the betterment of our residents in our county.
Denise, if I can just make it. I know the chairman would like to bring this discussion to a close, but I do have to say this. We have been a leader, and I will say it really was initiated by the county executive's office. It's got to be at least 12 years, Dean. I mean, Will County Green and going after green initiatives is something this county has worked on for a long time. We don't need this consortium, whatever it is, to come along and all of a sudden put us on the map. If we've been a little bit lax and maybe not updating it as much as we should have, that's one thing. See now I'm going the other way. So
the dollars.
But the grants. But my point I want to make is, folks, and to you also, Rachel, is that we've been working on this for a long time. It's not like this is new to us. I mean, like I say, maybe some updates. Maybe we're a little different as a county. I think we have some unique assets here to make us a little different. But certainly, any construction we have done is we've taken a green approach. So, I don't know if people get the impression like this is new for us. We've been at this for quite a while. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really believe that horse might be dead, so I think we could move to finance.
I just have one more question though, Denise.
What's the question, Judy?
I just wanted to say, so we have, like Jim said, we've been doing this green thing for a really long time on our own, but, and I know that working collaboratively with others, so if we endorse it, we work collaboratively with others to get grant dollars, but we already have a green plan that we would be updating, so we still can work we have worked collaboratively to get grant dollars. Am I correct?
I'm sure we could still apply for grants. It just gives us more opportunities, that's all.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
That's the main thing.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, finance? Steve, I do see your hand, and I did hear your comments the other day. Hold on just a minute, Ken. Unless you have something new to add to the discussion, we're going to move to the next committee.
I haven't made my mind up thoroughly yet.
That's okay, you don't have to here. You'll have an opportunity at the full board. Do you have something new to add to that discussion? What's the question?
Haven't we our own plan, so we don't have to...
That question's already been raised here.
We're working on
Thank
it.
you.
yeah.
I mean, I don't like the plan with the mayors.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Ken?
Can I
Okay,
make one other
nothing for
comment?
finance,
Can I
nothing...
make one other comment
a
on
new
land
comment?
use? You know, it's not on this subject. It's something I feel I have to say, though. You know, I was gone last month, and I would have said this last month, and many of you may not have known Steve Lazzara.
Oh, thank you.
And he passed. And I will tell you that he was a wonderful guy, really a great guy. And
yes, he was.
His dedication to Will County and our land use principles, and the reason I'm bringing him up now, for preservation and for green, and also having a very practical perspective on land use. You know, I feel I just had to mention him. Tyler, I don't know if you mentioned him at the last county board meeting, but if you would, mention him during your report, his passing, and that we acknowledged his contribution to Will County. I think it would be appreciated.
And I would agree, and certainly so. I was involved in all the different steering committees we had, a real force in land use. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Public Works?
Thank you, Denise. No, I just once again, I appreciate the opportunity to chair this committee, and I know there's a lot to learn, and it'll take quite a while to have all the knowledge that Don Moran had, but Jeff Ronaldson had agreed to meet with me once a week if we have to try to hammer out any issues that we have throughout the county and transportation, and so I'm really excited about that, so thank you.
Thank you. All right. Judicial? Okay. Public Health and Safety?
Just want to do the reminder about the CAC open house out in Stager from 9 to 11 this coming Saturday. This is a huge, huge, wonderful thing happening out on the eastern side of the county, long overdue. So if anyone can attend, look forward to seeing you.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, Legislative and Policy.
Nothing new from our meeting. We're just moving the resolution forward for a public hearing for the gaming, what do you call it? The video poker, video gambling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Capital?
I don't have any mayors in my capital, so I don't have anything to report.
Thank you. And you've heard the Executive Committee already this morning. Let's see, we have the appointments. Any public comments? Please, please, no, no, no. As you heard earlier, we're going to be going into executive session for the purpose of, Mary? Pending litigation, thank you. I'm looking at the wrong agenda, sorry. Motion to accept.
Executive. County board agenda as presented, as amended.
And a second? Second, okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, so then we will move into executive session for the purpose of pending litigation.
So moved.